All right, good evening. Dr. Jeremy Ellis here with Ellis Mobile Chiropractic, your no waiting room practice. And I am coming to you, of course, live from Fort Worth because that's where I am most of the time. Even though I end up finding myself all over the DFW Metroplex and at times Texas at large, Fort Worth is my home base. And I'm going to start things out with a suggestion that a friend had because I've got the worst jokes in the world. It's kind of one of the things I'm known for in the clinic and when I'm working with people. So as we go through, if you have an answer to this joke, put it in the comments because I'd be interested to see what you guys have. Okay, here's the question. How many apples grow on a tree? I'll make sure that I tell you before we finish this up, but I am interested to see how many of you want to participate in this. I know it's a bad joke, but that's the way it is. Okay, so one of the things that I want to talk about. Last week, I mentioned getting started towards a healthier life. What do you want to do to take the first steps towards a healthier life? And I may have soft pedaled a few things. And I think I was right to do that because there's some people that are just not ready to take large steps. And that's perfectly okay. A first step is absolutely important. You have to take the first step. However, I want to talk about taking the next step because this is really important. If you don't take the next step, you don't go anywhere. And I talk to people throughout the course of the day and the week. I see people at the gym. I hear some of these stories where they take the first step, maybe the second step, and they either stall or even worse, they fall off the road altogether and move back to where they were. And so taking that next step is a really important part of the process and figuring out how to constantly move yourself a little bit further forward down the road. Okay, so the first thing to start off with is a little bit of my personal story. This isn't something I talk about very often, especially in a public setting, because it's a bit embarrassing for me personally. But here's the thing. When I was a kid, I was athletic. I was fit. I kind of hit the genetic lottery in that sense. I could eat anything I wanted, never gained an ounce. The envy of all the adults around me. Thing is, that's a double-edged sword because you learn really bad habits. And I have a sweet tooth bigger than the state of Texas. I will polish off some candies and cookies and cakes like nobody's business. Thing is, I learned those habits. Fast forward a few years, I get to college. The freshman 15 is kind of laughable. I put on a few. I was sitting a lot. I was studying, and I really was studying. I wasn't doing a whole lot of partying. I was studying, but I kept eating all the same junk that I had for years. Put that back on. That started a process for me of up and down yo-yo weights, right? I didn't do a lot of the fad diets, but when I got back at it, I would lose the weight, and then when I would stop, it would come right back on. Okay. Fast forward even more. About 5 years ago, I was at the worst place that I'd ever been. I was a good 35, 40 pounds heavier than I am now, and a big part of that was pure body fat. Nowhere near as much muscle mass as I had now. I was sitting constantly, completely lethargic, didn't want to get out and do anything. Didn't want to go play with the kids, didn't want to interact with the world. It just was not a pleasant experience. And quite frankly, looking back on it, I think I was probably mildly depressed. The reality of it is that 3 years ago, I decided I wanted that to stop. I don't like the idea of being a hypocrite. I don't like the idea of anyone looking at me and thinking I'm a hypocrite. And I was giving health and wellness advice to people when I wasn't living it myself. I decided I wanted that to stop and that I wanted to change course. And so that's exactly what I did. And it started with small things. I worked on my diet. I worked on some physical activity that eventually grew to a greater degree. I definitely spent some time working on my mental outlook and figuring out how to view the world in a slightly different way. Now, all of this was done without drugs or surgery. And yes, it did take a little bit of extra time and it did take some self-discipline. And I haven't been perfect on the path since. I've still gone up and down a little bit, right? But the idea is that over this last 3 years, I have constantly worked to try to make sure that anything that I'm preaching to my patients, I'm also practicing. And I think that that's very important, especially when you hear me say something, I'm actually trying to do it myself. And I'm far from perfect, but that's where we all are. Okay, so coming back to this step, and again, this is where I talk to and I see this from people all the time, right? They take that first step, they take the second step, maybe they're having trouble with the next part. So why is this? In some cases, people will look at what they think the next step is, and it's just an insurmountable task. Now, primarily we're talking about health and wellness, but it can be anything. It can be something from your business life. It could be something from your health, of course. It could be something in your personal relationships. It could even be something from your spiritual life, because all of these things go together, and this is universally true, right? You look at the next step and you're like, there's no way I can achieve that. I'm out, right? It's just impossible. There's other people that might look at a situation and say, well, I just don't think I have it in me. Or maybe there's a little bit of fear to dig deep enough to hit that next step. They just may not think they have it in them, right? So here's the thing. For the people who are looking at their goal and think that it's just insurmountable, the problem is your goal is probably too big. Now hold on, because your goal's supposed to be big. If you don't have big goals, you'll never achieve them. There's a million gurus out there you can find that are going to teach you how to goal set. But to break things down real quick, have your big goal, your 10-year goal, your 1-year goal, whatever it is. Let's say it's to lose 100 pounds. Okay, great, you can lose 100 pounds, but you ain't doing it tomorrow. In fact, it ain't gonna happen next month. But what can you do today? You can lose 2 to 5 pounds this week. Maybe you achieve it, maybe you don't. But if you start with a bite-sized piece that's actually attainable, and you do that this week and next week and the week after, all of a sudden, that 100 pounds is gone, right? What about you want a greater degree of energy just to go out and play baseball in the street with your kids? I guess that's still a thing. It was when I was a kid, right? What do you need to do to get more energy? Why don't you just have enough energy to get up and go do some simple household tasks without caffeination or without some kind of stimulant? And there are ways that we can help with that, right? What if it's to put $1 million in the bank? Okay, well, I can tell you I'm a long way away from that one. That's a big bite for me. Don't start with the big bite. Start with the small and reasonable bites so you can actually get somewhere, right? So that's the first. If you think your goal is just insurmountable, don't look at the big goal. Look at the small goal that you can repeat over and over again, and that way you can achieve the bigger goal. The next thing, you gotta dig deep. Sometimes you get to a place and you're just like, I just can't do it. Or maybe I'm almost afraid of what it looks like to do that. But you can dig a little bit deeper. Let's say you're in the gym. Can you jog an extra 5 minutes today? More than you normally would. We don't want to become complacent in what we do. Can you lift an extra 5 pounds? Maybe that's something that's attainable, right? A lot of people get into this mindset of being complacent, that they're okay where they are because good enough is just good enough. And this brings up the term maintenance. I hate that word because there's no such thing as maintenance. It doesn't exist anywhere in life. You've got two options. You're growing, you're improving, you're getting better, or you're declining. That's it. It's one of the two. There is no such thing as maintenance. And I hear it within the chiropractic world a lot, and it just sends shivers down my spine, proverbially as it was, that there's no such thing as a maintenance plan in chiropractic. You can't maintain. You're either improving your immune system, you're improving your nervous system, you're improving your fitness or your posture, or it's getting worse. And what are you going to be in control of? So dig a little bit deeper. There's no such thing as maintenance. So let's increase a little bit. Let's not be complacent in what we're doing. Try for that extra 5 pounds. Maybe you don't get it. Maybe you only do a couple of reps with it, and you have to go back down. But next time, you'll probably get a few more. And next time, you'll probably get a few more. And that's how we improve. Jogging that extra 5 minutes. Okay, maybe you tap out at an extra 2, but guess what? You'll hit that extra 2 next time, and maybe you can go the third minute the time after that. That's how we improve, is continually moving ourselves forward. And so those are two big things that I want to make sure that we're all looking at. So next time you're in the gym, next time you're sitting down and setting business goals, think, is there something I can do a little bit better, a little bit further than what I've done before, so that not only are we not allowing ourselves to be complacent, but that we're actually achieving something bigger and better than what we were. Now remember, I'm talking about health and wellness, but it applies to all areas of life, right? If your personal relationships are having trouble, you're not happy where they are, sit down, think about it, figure out what you can do to advance that a little bit further, and it might be uncomfortable. Same thing with your spiritual life. Now, I'll tell you, I've got a lot of improvement to work on that one myself. In all of these areas, I've got improvement, and no matter where you are at the very beginning of the process, or if you're really advanced in any one of these areas, understand we all have improvement to make. So don't let that discourage you. Keep on moving forward so that you don't fall backwards and lose any of the gains that you might have. And over time, with consistency and repetition, you'll be able to achieve the goals that you set or get a lot closer, and you'll be able to do so in a very short period of time. All right, so for anyone who's still wondering how many apples grow on a tree, all of them. I know, bad joke, it's my thing. I don't know what to say. All right, y'all have a great rest of your evening. Enjoy dinner if you hadn't already had it, and y'all stay healthy and safe.